beauty. The world revolves around it alongside money. Those are two things people manage to spend their whole lives running towards. It doesn't matter the age you are anymore, social status, gender. This has been a tendency for people since the first tribes got together in social agreement. To have more, to be more. These two things are the meaning of being relevant, to exist. To be noticed, to be remembered, to be loved, to be happy. To be. If there is one thing the tragic urban legends around Onryos tell us is that, maybe, obsession on whatever what may be, it is indeed a curse. We have stories about love being taken for granted, trusts being broken, feelings being shattered together with their living bodies, leaving the victim's soul wandering between the world of the dead and the living with only one desire: revenge. Nowadays more than ever, anything can be the reason for punishment. Even to exist to some people is a mistake. And what if you were given such beauty that all the men or even women would feel attracted to you? And when you find a person that you love and trust becomes so obsessed with you that starts to think that your appearance, your face, is a sin? Today we will embark on a journey of a tale about a woman so beautiful that was punished to eternity for it. This is the story of Kuchisake Onna, the Slit-Mouthed Woman. We will go back to Japan in the Heian period that lasted from the year 794 to 1185. Legend tells the story of a young, tall Japanese woman that lived alone in a piece of land she inherited from her parents. Even though she did all the hard work by herself, she never forgot to take care of her appearance. She was most definitely the most beautiful girl in the entire village. Some women with more social status envied her, and all the men, married or not, desired her. She didn't care much about being any of those things. None of the single men in the village actually interested her, and if there was one thing she was not, it was being naive. She knew for sure what they wanted. And she knew she was beautiful. She knew her eyes could hypnotize sellers in giving her major discounts in supplies. Her smile would open the most closed hearts and mouths to their deepest secrets. Yes, she knew. Her vanity and being beautiful the way she was certainly brought many benefits. She would spend all the free time she had, brushing her long dark straight hair, admiring herself. She resembled her mother, and as for what she remembered, she had her father's eyes. Them two at the time were considered the best-looking couple in the entire region. Her mom died first out of pneumonia, and her father, heartbroken and depressed, died some months after. They both loved their daughter very much, but never to spoil her so much. She always knew about the effort her parents put into raising her. She grew knowing the value of hard work and money. And she had a desire of her own. To have a family to call hers, but she wouldn't just give herself to any man that appeared. She remained patient. She knew that one day the right one would come. And so, this day came. She was at the market as usual when she saw him in the distance. He was walking distracted, looking at the open-air market stands, dressed in red and black armor, his hands holding his sword. She tried not to stare, but it was stronger than her. He was the most handsome man she had ever laid her eyes on. A tall, imponent samurai with deep black eyes. Eyes that soon enough found hers. She immediately blushed and turned her face away, grabbed whatever she needed. She didn't even know anymore what she bought, and went back home. For the rest of the day, he was all she thought about. His eyes meeting hers. Did he notice her? What if he did? Probably he already had someone, a man like that, an honorable samurai. Surely some other woman must have had won his heart. As she was brushing her hair, these thoughts would get a hold of her head and heart. One day as she was working on her land carrying a big basket tied to her back with the vegetables she had planted, she heard a voice coming from behind her. Need a hand with that? She turned. There he was. The samurai from before, as handsome as he could be. She blushed again, her voice almost didn't come out. No, it's okay, she answered. Come on, it's too heavy for a girl to carry all this weight on her own, he said. I've been doing this for a long time without the help of anyone, she said annoyed and continued walking. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be rude, but you were, she interrupted him while walking. It is just because it is uncommon to see such a beautiful woman like you doing a man's job. She stopped and looked at him. Oh, and let me guess, I should be just put waiting for a man for me to marry, doing nothing all day long as he would work and I would just bear his children? Well, yes. What? She was really annoyed. I mean, no, he looked embarrassed. Tell you what, she put the basket on the ground. I'll race you. If you win, I'll let you carry the basket for me. And what if I lose? Then you just lost. She put her hands behind her back, to a girl. You are a samurai, are you not? I mean, it would be such a shame for a well-trained warrior such as yourself to lose to a delicate, gentle woman that probably should be at home preparing to be nothing but a mother. Wow, didn't know you would get that offended. What say you, mighty samurai? He looked at her defying sparkling eyes. How beautiful they were. Where to? She pointed to a direction. Over there is my house. I'll even let you go without your armor so you won't carry so much weight. Now he looked annoyed. Like you said, I am a trained warrior. Get ready, little girl. And so, they raced against each other. She was extremely fast. As soon as she started, she had covered a huge distance from him. He couldn't believe it. None of his friends was that fast. He actually has never seen anyone run like that. And how far was her house anyway? They went uphill. He was starting to lose his breath. As for her, didn't even break a sweat. She got there first and waited for him. He took some seconds to arrive all sweaty and almost out of breath. She had a light, beautiful smile on her face. Where did you learn to run like that? He asked, sitting on the ground. She laughed. The samurai was mesmerized to see that the impossible was happening before his eyes. He thought she couldn't be more beautiful, but to see her smile, to hear her laugh, it was the pure image of perfection. She brought water from the well to him. Thank you. Now, go back and bring me my basket, she said. Hey, that was not the deal. No, but the deal before was a very bad one too. Who would want to carry weight as a prize? Not very smart there, mighty samurai. Your pride took the best of you. He smiled, what made her blush. I can't believe I got humbled by a girl. Oh, but you were, she smiled again. Later he brought back her basket and he was impressed on how heavy it was. They spent some time talking and she was delighted to have him share a little about him. She admitted that he didn't give her a good first impression. He apologized, saying that he was actually never really good around women. He never even had a girlfriend or someone he liked before. As it was getting dark, he had to go. "May I know your name?" he asked. "No," she answered. "Maybe when we see each other again I will tell you." He smiled once more and left. That night her heart was beating fast. It was the first time she was feeling that way about someone. She dreamt about him. They met many more times, and it didn't take long until they fell madly in love. They got married in a very humble but beautiful ceremony, and that night both of them got what no one ever had, their bodies. When they were together, as the sun would go down, in bed, it was like they could melt entire winter seasons by how hot they made each other feel in desire and passion. She felt every day even more beautiful. He made her feel like that. They immediately became the most beautiful couple in the region. The samurai noticed that even after married, some man couldn't take their eyes off of his wife. She wouldn't care. She loved him even though she knew that, because she was the most gorgeous woman in the entire village, she didn't care. But he did, and he didn't like it. Days, months, years passed by and he grew jealous. He knew men would talk about her behind his back. He started going to the market by himself to buy things for the house, as he wouldn't want to let anyone see her again. She talked to him that this didn't make any sense, as she lived alone most of her grown-up life and never she had a reason for people to come and talk to her or disrespect her. She said she loved him and that he shouldn't worry. "But you are not alone anymore," he said angrily. "You are my wife now. You must obey. I don't want to see these dirty scumbags around you trying to steal you from me. You are mine. What do you take me for? One of those women you pick up on your journeys?" she yelled back. He slapped her, making her fall on the floor. For the first time in the years they have been married, they didn't touch each other. One day he was called to fight in a war. He almost didn't go. He couldn't take leaving his wife behind, but not out of love. He didn't want her to be available for another man to come and court her. Honor spoke higher and he left. And she was alone for months, not knowing what happened to him. She didn't have any news. Some days when she was on the street, she would ask a group of samurais if they had any information about her husband's whereabouts, but they didn't know anything. One of them said that the war was almost over, but those who started to come back home were the ones who survived, so probably if he didn't come back, it was possible that he died in the battlefield. A year passed by and he still hadn't returned home. Depressed and alone, she continued with her life, leaving whatever hope she had of him returning. She had lost count on how many nights she prayed and cried, asking for him to come back home to her. One winter night, as she was sleeping, she heard one of the sliding doors of her house opening. She immediately got up. Everything was dark. As silent as she could, she went to grab a dagger and waited. She heard footsteps. She saw a man's shadow walking around and stopping in one place in the other room. She realized it was not her husband. It was another man trying to rob her house. Fortunately, he had his back towards her. She grabbed him, twisted his arm against his back and put the blade of the dagger on his neck. "Give me one reason not to kill you right here, right now. Please, please, I'm sorry. I am very sorry. I just, oh my God, let me explain. I'm sorry," the young man said, scared. "Speak." "Okay. I am hungry, ma'am. My mother is sick. I can't find a job and we have nothing to eat. Believe me, I tried everything, but they wouldn't hire me for anything. You are lying, she said, forcing a little her blade against his neck. No. I swear, I can show you. I'll take you to my house, please. Okay, I'll ask you then, do you have some food to spare? We haven't eaten anything in 2 days. She is getting weaker. She thought for a moment. She could feel the young man's heart pounding on his chest. Okay, she finally said, but if you lying to me, I'll kill you where you stand. Do you understand? And believe me, I am extremely good at it. You would be no different from a pig. I would make you squeal. I am sorry. Don't do this. Please, I am telling you the truth. She let go of him and he turned to face her. As she looked at him, she realized how young and handsome he was. He was genuinely scared. He thanked her many times. He had big, black eyes, beautiful black short hair and fair skin. She didn't soften her expression to him, but she was impressed. She took some stuff. Food and money was something that she didn't need to worry. He took her through the cold streets until they came to a small, old house. There was light coming from it. As they entered, he announced he was back. They heard a weak female voice coming from inside. Tsutomu, is that you? Yes, Mom, it's me. Don't get up. He turned to the woman who came with him. Please, come meet my mother. She followed the young Tsutomu to a bedroom. There she saw a very old fragile woman lie down on her bed. She coughed several times. She felt sorry for the young man and the old lady. Mom, I brought food. How are you feeling? Strong as a mountain, she coughed again, and then she noticed the tall, gorgeous woman behind her son. Oh, hello. She looked at Tsutomu. Is she a friend of yours? Well, Yes, she interrupted him. He came to my house to ask for a job, and I decided to hire him to help me on my farm. She came closer and kneeled on the side of the old woman and grabbed her hand. He told me about you, and so I couldn't help to bring you some things. Tsutomu looked at her astonished. He felt so grateful for that. Oh, my dear child, thank you so much. Bless you. What is your name? Maya, she said with a gentle smile. Maya, the old lady repeated, a beautiful name for such a beautiful woman. The old lady tried to get up. Are you hungry? I will prepare something for you. There is no need. Please, let me do this for you both. You have to rest. Please, let me help you. The old lady looked at her son and then back at Maya and thanked her with a smile. As Maya was preparing the meal for them, she overheard them talking. I am so proud of you, Tsutomu. Now that you found a job and have a friend, a very beautiful one too, she gave a weak but honest laugh. Mom. Maya couldn't help but smile. Early the next morning as the sun was rising, Maya woke by a voice calling her name. She got up and peeked through the door to see the young man from before. She opened the door and she was greeted by a bow and a smile, and something felt weird. Good morning, Miss Maya. I came to work. To what? She asked, confused. Well, to work. You said that you hired me to help you in your farm, didn't you? Oh yes, but it was just not to tell my mother that I came here to steal. But believe me, miss, I wouldn't try to steal from you if I had a job. Inside she felt happy and touched by Tsutomu's honesty, and this made him look much more attractive. And so he began working for her. She would pay him a very good amount, and often would visit his house to see how his mother was doing. She was getting better. Maya had some doctors check on her, so everything was going well. Tsutomu was of great help. He was strong, agile, and not even once he would treat her with disrespect. But also, he never would mention on how beautiful she was, as she was used to have from everyone she knew. He had seen her not dressed to work as usual. She started asking herself if he found her pretty. One very cloudy day, they were working on the field harvesting some vegetables. She picked up a cucumber and looked at him and said, "So, this is what you like to eat, right?" Tsutomu looked at her, puzzled by the question. "I mean, considering you are a kappa." "A kappa? Those frog-like monsters?" "Well, yes, you look very much like them." "What?" Maya started laughing and was joined by him. Suddenly rain started to pour. "Let's go back to the house. I'll race you to it," she said. "Bring it on." They raced to her house. Amazingly, he could keep up with her, and both had basket full of vegetables on their backs. But they were not fast enough to escape getting soaked. They arrived to the house and sat under a covered area, both still laughing, sitting side by side. Maya looked at him again, their eyes met. "Do you think I'm pretty?" Maya asked with a smile. He blushed, but didn't take his eyes off of her. "Yes, you are the most beautiful woman I've ever seen." Maya couldn't hold herself anymore. She got closer to Tsutomu and said, "I don't really think you look like a kappa." He smiled back. She kissed him, and as their lips touched, a wave of strong desire took over both of them. She brought him inside. "I've never been with a woman before," he said as he looked at her beautiful body standing without clothes in front of him. She smiled, and that was enough for them to get to know each other more intimately several times that day. Days and months passed by. Maya was happy again. She had fallen deeply in love with Tsutomu, and so was he with her. They wanted to be together. They started making plans. They even talked about having children. The only person who knew about them was Tsutomu's mother, and she gave them her blessing. One fateful night, a man dressed in a red and black armor walked the streets of the village. One hand resting on his sword. He had his face scarred, prizes he got on the battlefield. After almost 2 years away from home, the samurai was back, now fully recovered from being mortally wounded in battle. He thought for a moment he wouldn't make it, and still, there he was, limping, but still alive. His days as a warrior were over, and now he would go back to his wife, settle down as a farmer, have a family. He still took pride on having the most beautiful wife life could ever have given him. Nothing would prepare him from what he was about to see as he got to the small gates of his house. From outside he saw the lights inside were on. Maya's was awake, what he thought was strange since it was late at night. He heard some strange noise coming from the house, voices. As he walked closer, he heard more, louder, screams, not of horror, but pleasure. "Tell me, am I beautiful?" she asked. "Yes, my love, you are perfect." It was Maya's voice and another man's voice. This was enough for Maya's husband to lose his mind completely and burst in an explosion of rage and jealousy. He stormed screaming inside the house, his sword at hand, to find the two of them naked making love in their bedroom. Maya was petrified when she saw the man she thought was dead. By instinct she covered her body. "You," the samurai said with his voice full of hatred towards her. Tsutomu stood up in front of him to defend her. She had told him about her husband and that he had left for war and didn't come back home. So they both thought he was dead. Maya also stood up and asked Tsutomu to step back. She knew he wasn't a fighter, but he said no, he would defend her as she was the love of his life. Without any warning, One swift movement and Maya's husband decapitated Tsutomu. His head fell close to Maya's feet. She screamed in terror. The samurai grabbed Maya by her hair and rubbed her face on her lover's blood and then pulled her to face him. "So, this is what I get from you. I almost died and this is what I get," he yelled at her. She couldn't speak. She was desperately crying. He threw her against the wall. "Am I pretty? Is that what you were asking to him?" Yes, the pretty woman needs men to tell her that all the time, now doesn't she? He came closer to her. "Please," she begged, "please, stop." He got close to her and grabbed her throat, almost choking her. "Open your mouth," he ordered. She tried to turn her face away. He squeezed more. "I said, open your mouth," her husband said between his teeth. She forcefully opened her mouth, and so he positioned his sword to her skin, and another swift movement slit her mouth open wide. Blood gushed out from her face. She screamed in agony, but couldn't call for help. He then took his sword and put on fire until the blade got red and pressed against Maya's wound. She would convulse because the pain she was enduring, but soon she passed out. The samurai knew the young man and where he lived. He took his head and went to Tsutomu's house. There he threw the young man's head on top of Tsutomu's mother, and as she woke, the first thing she was the horrible image of her son's head dead stare. She screamed, but soon everything was quiet as Maya's husband killed the old lady too. A few moments later, Maya was awakened with slaps to her face. She was naked outside her house, and saw her husband looking at her and smiling as he had the two bodies laid one on top of the other. "Say goodbye to family you thought you had, my love. May this be a lesson that your family is me." And he set both bodies on fire. Maya wanted to scream, but her mouth was shut by a bloody piece of cloth. Tears rolled down her eyes as she saw the bodies burn, and with it, her happiness faded away that night. The days passed. Maya couldn't eat properly anymore, and she lost weight. She looked herself in the mirror to see two horrendous scars on her face that had badly healed. She was not beautiful anymore. The light and sparkle of her eyes had died. Every day she would suffer some kind of abuse from her husband, calling her a monster, a mistake. On the street, people would look horrified at her. They couldn't even believe she was even the same woman as before. But what hurt her the most were the children pointing, laughing, and calling her names. She ate even less until she had no strength anymore to stand. Seeing this, her husband went to the back of her house and dug a hole, and still alive Maya was thrown inside. As he was throwing dirt inside the hole with her in it, she screamed and asked him to stop. That night the samurai slept as if nothing had ever happened. The next morning he woke up and went back to check the hole. To his surprise and horror, it was uncovered and Maya was not there. He grew desperate and started calling her on his land. She couldn't have gone far in the state she was in. She was too weak. She was supposed to be dead. He had no success, and days and nights passed until he forgot about her. As he was walking on the streets of the village, he saw in the distance a woman in a long red kimono with black flowers drawn on it. Her hair was beautiful, dark and long. It reminded him of his dead wife. For a second they exchanged looks. She had a strange, hypnotizing gaze, but cold. She wore a black face mask on her face. And so she disappeared among the crowd. He started going out every day to see if he had the chance of seeing her again, but no, he didn't. Still, he couldn't get her out of his head. Until one night as he was having dinner, he heard the sliding door of his house open and gentle steps. He looked back and there she was, tall, with the same kimono, her eyes fixed on him. He stood up. His heart was racing. She pulled an extremely sharp dagger from the back and asked with a voice adorned with evil intent. "Do you think I am pretty?" The man smiled and said without hesitating, "Yes, yes you are." She kept staring at him with her cold, deadly eyes and slowly removed her mask, revealing a face deformed by 2 horrendous scars, and she opened her mouth. It did in a way no human could be possible to do, and it was wide beyond normal. The samurai screamed. He knew who she was. "And now, do you think I am pretty now?" The man ran outside screaming in horror by what he just had seen. He looked back. There was no one following him. As he turned his face front, there she was. She grabbed him by his throat and lifted him from the ground and brought his face close to hers. "Do you think I am pretty?" she asked with a demonic voice. Trying to save his life, he answered yes, thinking she would spare him, but then she said, "Open your mouth." Maya's husband widened his eyes in despair. "Open your mouth," and she squeezed his throat until he gagged, forcing him to open his mouth. She then put the dagger on it and slowly and very painfully slit his mouth just like hers. He screamed in pain and agony. With extreme force and violence, she threw him on the ground, breaking most of his bones. She kept staring at him, waiting for him to die. He signed he wanted to say something. She slowly kneeled next to him. "You monster," he said with difficulty. Maya screamed in an inhuman rage and stabbed his face countless times, and she didn't stop, even after she knew he was dead. A few days later, children started disappearing in the village. Some were found with their mouths slit open, others stabbed to death. People left the village scared of what a few that survived called the Kuchisake Onna. She would appear to some people, especially children, and ask, "Am I pretty?" If one would say yes, she would slit one's mouth just like hers. If he said no, she would stab one to death. Some kids survived and said they offered her hard candy, and she would stare at it confused. They say that offering candy to her was a demonstration of affection, something that she had very little on her life, and when she really did, it was taken away from her. Nobody ever found Maya's body, and the story went cold until the 1980s, where people said they saw a very tall woman walking the streets of Japan, wearing a long red trench coat with black flowers drawn on it. Some other people say that the Slit-Mouthed Woman died a long time ago, but her vengeful spirit would take over every beautiful and vain woman to perpetrate her vengeance on the generations to come, and that leads us to another tale of the Kuchisake Onna, but that is for another time. So, stay tuned to part 2 of the urban legend of Kuchisake Onna.
If you liked this video, please consider subscribing and liking to help us bring you more Japanese ghost stories. Thank you for watching.